to contribute towards schools. And the fact is that the mayor's revised budget, this is when he found the additional $2 million.
Stay safe, enjoy the weather, and happy spring. Bye-bye.
1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 119 Canal Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Contact us by email at wmnh953@gmail.com.
Good evening. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm J.P. Marzullo, and I'm alone again because our host is on a special assignment. I really think it's probably because he had a long birthday weekend and he's playing somewhere, but he'll be back next week. So I want to remind myself to thank Wilson Hill Pistol Club for sponsoring our program. So thank you for that. Tonight I have a friend of mine on who has just had his bill passed, which is pretty exciting. I don't know much about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, so this is going to be more educational for me maybe than some of the people that are actually watching. So Representative Keith Ammon, welcome. Good to see you, buddy.
Nice to be with you, man.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. We were talking about getting cigars together, and
we never made that, right?
We got to do it.
Yeah, that's the deal. That's the deal. So I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk to the. To our viewers about the bill that you just passed. It's just pretty exciting, and I think it's going to be a template for other states across the country, right?
Yeah, there's other states that are very close to passing a similar bill. This is like a national movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you start from scratch? Tell people what the bill's about.
Yeah.
And what kinds of things, maybe issues you ran into that you had to correct. I know that it was signed the other day by Governor Ayotte. I saw you there. And that's pretty exciting, man. It really is.
It was really exciting.
So I can remember the first time I ran for office, some of the people we hung out with offered to give me Bitcoins. And I had no idea where they were going to go. So I said, no, that's okay.
It's complicated, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So why don't we start with the bill and what it says?
I mean, let's start with why the bill is useful for the state, because it's really about, we have a state that's part of the United States.
Yep.
And we run on the U.S. dollar, right? That's our currency of choice. And, in Europe, they used to have, each country had its own currency. And so if you cross the border, you
had to change.
But they were very used to calculating different currency rates. Like if I'm going to go to Canada in a little while, and it's like $1.40 Canadian to $1 US.
Okay.
And Americans, our brains aren't really wired to think about currency.
I mean, I worked for a company that when we had a tube making manufacturer, X-ray tubes, in Germany. And you'd have to think of euros because that was the currency to deal with. And it was pretty difficult because we don't have to do it here, right?
We don't. We have 50 states. We have a huge economy, right? We have the luxury of not having to think about currency.
Yeah,
it's sort of
absolutely.
But we have seen in the recent, couple of years, things have gotten way more expensive, right? So if you go out to eat, it used to cost you $5 for a meal, now it costs you $15 for a meal, right?
Yeah.
Or you fill up your gas. I mean, gas fluctuates, but the cost of construction equipment, the cost of your house, like if you have a house that's worth, let's say it's worth $250,000 for your house, and then 10 years goes by, and now your house is worth $500,000, doubles in a decade. You still have the same house. You have a 10-year older house.
Right.
But somehow the dollar value goes up.
Yeah.
So you still have the same house. That's the point.
Right.
It's the value of the currency is going down. It's going down because the federal government is printing money.
Right.
Printing, borrowing, and spending.
Yep.
And so as new money comes into circulation, it devalues the money that we have.
So is this like a reserve thing?
Yeah, this is a reserve. So real estate is an asset that helps you fight against inflation, helps you mitigate the effects of inflation. So
Okay.
I gave you that example, $250,000 house over 10 years, right? So
Yep.
let's say you had $250,000 in the bank,
Yep.
and you had that $250,000 house. 10 years goes by, you still have $250,000 in the bank, but now
Yep.
your house is $500,000, right?
Right.
But the value of the money in the bank went down. The stuff you can buy with it goes down.
Right.
Because more money is getting put into circulation.
Right. Got it.
So that's the whole key, right? So,
Right.
the shame of it is, poor people get poorer and rich people get richer, because rich people know to park their money into assets or in the stock market,
Right.
and poor people don't have that luxury. They maybe don't understand how it works, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck, so they get more behind over
Right,
time, right? So
right.
it's a big problem that we don't really think about too much.
Right. So that would have something to do with housing too.
Could be
Right,
right.
yeah,
There's other
could be.
forces at
Yeah.
work, right? The supply of housing and that kind of thing.
Right.
But a lot of it has to do with money printing. So during COVID, the government printed a huge amount of money and put it into circulation. So the inflation is caused by too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's the definition of inflation,
It's interesting.
right? So,
Yeah.
so as far as a hedge against inflation, gold is a
Yep.
hedge against inflation. And so when you get into digital assets, Bitcoin is a programmatic clone of gold.
Okay.
It's a programmatic clone of gold.
All right.
And I'll explain how that works.
I was just going to ask you, how's that work?
Yeah. So think of Bitcoin like a digital form of gold. So gold is in the ground. It's in veins. It's in little flakes in the creeks, right?
Right.
And to get it out of the ground, it takes energy. You have human energy, and you have bulldozers and
Yeah.
wash plants. I don't know if you've ever seen what's that show? Gold Rush on the
Gold Rush.
You've probably seen that, right?
I did, yeah.
A lot of equipment, a lot
Yes.
of moving earth, right? So as new gold comes into circulation, it has a slightly suppressing on the value of everyone else's gold, right? So as here's the concept. It's the first spend of new money. The first spend of new money. If you can wrap your head around that, here's a bunch of money or a bunch of gold in circulation, and as new money gets put in circulation, it is spent the first time as if it was the same value as all the other currency. But as it enters the whole economy, it suppresses the value of every other dollar, right? And the same thing kind of happens with gold, but there's breaks on the issuance of new gold. There's an energy cost. There's a human capital cost, right? And so that's a limiting factor on new gold entering circulation. With the US dollar, there is no limiting factor. They can print as many it's not backed by anything. Other than paper. Most of it's digital. Most of it's in a database somewhere, right? So, I mean, Elon Musk, with the Doge, I don't know if you're following Doge.
Oh, yeah, I am. Yeah.
They said they found 14 computers in the US Treasury and other departments, 14 computers that just made payments. There was nothing backing it up. They were just issuing payments digitally.
Yeah.
And it was just new money was flowing into the
That
economy.
had no value behind it.
Yeah, other than it looks like another dollar, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's just one example of it's kind of crazy how much new money is put into circulation. So the point is just gold versus dollar. The new issuance of gold is constrained by physics. It's constrained by the reality that gold is hard to get to, right?
Right.
But the constraint on new issuance of U.S. dollars, there is none. They can just add more zeros to a database,
right?
And then issue those payments. So Bitcoin is designed to be more like gold, where there's a energy cost to finding new Bitcoin. So here's how it. I don't know how technical you want to get it. I have a couple analogies I can use.
Try to use some analogies, but there are a lot smarter people than me listening to this show.
I think it's fun to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I when I first heard of Bitcoin, I would say okay, well, show me a piece of Bitcoin, give me a coin, and then if I want to spend it, how do I spend it?
Yeah,
and that was always something that kind of held me back because I'm thinking, well.
It's not real.
It's not real. It's a digital product that I don't know how to use.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it will help me. I mean, that's
Right.
I'm sure there's other people who felt the same way, right?
Yeah, so that's why I'm using the gold analogy. 'Cause
Yeah, let's
you can
keep
hold
it-
gold in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't really do that with Bitcoin.
Exactly.
But you can, with Bitcoin, you can teleport it through the internet all the way around the world to anybody in the world.
Okay.
But you can't do that with gold.
Right.
So there's some advantages to having a purely digital form. You have to put gold in a vault and you have to have armed guards protect it.
Right.
But Bitcoin doesn't weigh anything.
Right.
And there's easier ways to protect your wealth, right? So there's advantages to having a purely digital form. And Bitcoin is designed to be limited in supply, kind of like how gold is limited in supply, because there's only so much gold
Right.
in the earth, or gold that's accessible to humans, right?
Right.
So I can get into how Bitcoin does that if you want.
Yeah,
to
I
me,
would-
that's kind of fun to think about.
Yeah, I would like to, because what you just said was, so I can send it through the internet. Do I send the amount that I have? Do I tell the other person that I'm going to be, this is worth X? If I'm going to buy, is that? I mean, that's kind of confusing.
Yeah. So, there's a couple questions wrapped into that
I
one. Yeah.
figured that. Yeah.
All right, let's start with this one. So we're all familiar with digital files, right? Like
Yep.
you have an email and you attach a Word document to it.
Yeah.
Or you attach a picture of your grandkids to it or whatever, right?
Sure.
Now, when I send an email with that picture attached to it, the other person receives the email with the picture,
Right.
but I still have a copy of it,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And I could do that a million times.
Sure.
I can make a million copies of that picture.
And
There's, There's no scarcity. There's no
Right. It's
scarcity.
easy. Right. Okay. I got it.
Right?
Yep.
So with Bitcoin, it works a little differently, and this is the kind of the magic. Bitcoin used a set of computer science innovations, put them all together into this bundle, and it solves this problem of creating digital scarcity and preventing that double spend.
Okay.
And that's a key innovation. That's huge. So with Bitcoin, if I have, let's say I have 10 Bitcoin, and I send you 5. Everybody needs to agree that I still only have 5. I only have 5 left, right? I'm down 5 because I sent you 5, right?
Okay.
So it sort of mirrors the physical world. So
All right.
if I have 10 pennies and I give you 5,
Yeah. You have 5 left.
right? It's
Yeah.
easy to think about when it's physical world.
Yeah.
But if I have 10 Bitcoin and I send you 5,
Right.
the Bitcoin protocol makes sure that everybody knows, everybody agrees that I no longer possess those 5.
So when you're saying everybody agrees, like, who are the people?
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody that holds a Bitcoin?
That's a great question. So Bitcoin is a decentralized network. So this is another thing you have to wrap your head around.
Okay.
If you were a younger person and you were into file sharing, you would know about something like BitTorrent. There's a file sharing protocol. Anyway, that's probably too much to explain, but it's the idea is it's decentralized. There's no single server anywhere. So they're called nodes, but it's like a program that runs on a server.
Yep.
That's a node, and it has a copy of the entire blockchain, and it's connected to all the other nodes. There's not a single master. They're all equal. They're all co-equal. And they're all speaking the same language, which is what a protocol is. It's a language, a set of like messages and rules. And that's all built into this software that's based on. And they all have a copy of the blockchain. They all have the entire history of everything that's ever happened in Bitcoin. They all have it. Now, when you and I interact and I send you 5,
Right.
we're broadcasting that transaction
To everyone.
To everyone. And it goes into like a bucket. It's called a mempool.
Okay.
It's sitting there waiting to get added to the blockchain. There's a whole bunch of them. Anytime somebody sends it, it sits in this bucket. And what these nodes are doing, there are nodes that mine. So think about gold mining. It's kind of like that. They're looking for a set of transactions to add to the blockchain. And I'll get into how that works in a second. It's a little tricky, but they're all trying to find the next block, and there's a rule around who gets to find the next block. And when one of them does, they add to the blockchain, they broadcast the solution to the rest of the network, and then the rest of the network says, okay, that's the next block, we all agree. And then they all update their blockchain to the same new block.
So what happens if they don't agree?
Then they're not part of the network. Then it's they.
Oh, okay.
So think of like thousands and thousands of computers. If one decides to run different software, then they're just cut off.
They're gone.
They're not speaking the same language. It's almost like all of a sudden they started speaking Swahili and no one understands them.
Okay.
Right? It's kind of like that idea.
So how does that, I mean, if you can explain why it's so important in the state and why it's so, why it's important. I mean, I think Andrew Hemingway is into this as well. I think he's doing something. Isn't he?
There's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do with blockchain. This is sort of like the basic.
Okay, so how does it help the state?
Yeah.
And is it like a reserve, like you'd have a money reserve?
Yeah, so that's how the bill is sort of framed.
Okay.
Really what it does is it lets the treasurer, if she wants to, use these, it's a brand new asset class. So like we're talking about a computer program, but when you turn on the business news, they're talking about it as a brand new asset class. It's an uncorrelated brand new asset class that governments and countries and people are all investing in. So you kind of have to think about, it's not just a game on the computer, it is the global financial, like it has penetrated the global financial order because it's that big of an idea.
Wow.
It's hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
So, there's something called modern portfolio theory. It was invented a couple decades ago. I can't remember the man's name, but you've heard like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, right.
Right? Diversify.
Right.
So now we have this brand new asset class that we can use to diversify state funds, and it has the added benefit of over time it protects against inflation, just like gold. So part of the bill is gold. The treasurer can invest in gold. So going back to that $250,000 house, the treasurer is only allowed to keep cash in the bank and cannot protect that against inflation.
Okay.
And so this would allow a little bit. There's limits on it. We put tight guardrails on it that they can use a little bit to add to a new bucket and diversify the funds so that over time we at least try to keep up with inflation. We don't have to tax people more because the money that we have on hand is worth less.
Got it.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a big idea and it's new, and other states are doing it. Texas, I think Arizona and North Carolina, and there's a couple others that I can't remember. They were all nipping at our heels. Their governor was ready to sign, Arizona especially. Arizona has like 3 or 4 of these bills.
Oh, wow.
So one of them was, there's one that everybody thinks the governor's going to sign. That's a lot like the one that we just did. And so the state that goes first kind of makes history, right? It's a brand new asset class, and we're at least considering it for protecting our taxpayer funds from getting eaten away by inflation. So we, behind the scenes at the State House, we kind of fast-tracked it, and Governor Ayotte was kind enough to sign it yesterday. And
that was a big deal.
It was a big deal. So, normally it takes a few weeks for a bill to get signed into law, and this happened in a couple hours. So.
Wow.
Yeah, super cool.
So you had to have Senate help too. I mean,
we had to pass the bill twice through the House.
Okay.
So it had to go through 2 committees. You're familiar with that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then it went to the Senate, Senate Ways and Means, and so they passed it. There was a little bit of debate on the floor of the Senate, but then they ended up passing it. That was last Thursday. So it was Thursday to yesterday.
Wow.
We got it to the governor's desk, and
that's incrable.
Yeah.
I don't know whether people realize how fast that is.
That's super fast.
But
if you go on the internet right now, everybody that's interested in this topic, they're all talking about New Hampshire. They're all saying, "Oh my God, we did not expect New Hampshire to be first." Like you go into like these chat forums, they're all talking about New Hampshire, and they're all learning about New Hampshire, and
that's pretty awesome.
So it's very positive news, and there's really not a lot of downside because we're leaving it up to the treasurer and her advisors to make the decision. This isn't a mandate.
Right.
We're just giving her another tool in the toolbox to use, right? And we met with her during the crafting of this bill, so she was
she was on board.
She was involved in the process, and they don't take a position, but when they don't like something, they ask questions, or and she was very very helpful with getting this just right with an amendment, and
So you sponsored the bill? Did you have any co-sponsors? Or?
I sponsored it with Joe Sweeney, Jason Osborne.
Okay.
I think a couple senators. I want to say Kevin Avard and Keith Murphy, and
and there's Tim Lang in it, or
could have been Tim Lang. I could look it up now if you want, but
no, that's fine. That's fine.
And then some other House members.
I was just curious.
Yeah, we had a full boat of sponsors on it.
Nice.
Yeah, and Jason Osborne, the majority leader, was helping to fast track it. He was
He's involved with that already, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, it's like buying, a gold coin or something. It's sort of like you own it and hoping that.
So you have to make sure it's like it only advances itself if somebody else wants it, right?
Yeah, it's right. It's like, I mean, that's the reason anything has value is other humans.
Like a house.
Yeah, or like
your car or whatever.
Right, or like a Picasso painting or something, right?
Yeah.
It's just a canvas with oil paint on it if nobody wants it, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so lots of people are learning about this and they're getting excited. I don't know if you've ever seen those magic dot posters. Like they came out in the 80s or early 90s. Do you remember those posters?
I think so.
So it was like random dots on a poster.
Yeah.
And if you stare at it just right,
yeah, you can see something.
like a spaceship pops out at you, or
right.
a dinosaur, right?
Like three-dimensional.
Yeah, three-dimensional.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you recall the first time like you saw what the picture was. Like it was like, wow, that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
But when you walk in the room and people are saying, wow, look at this, and you don't see it, you don't get you don't feel like, wow, that is amazing until you see it, right?
Right.
So Bitcoin and crypto is kind of like that. You kind of have to keep looking at it from different perspectives until you see like, wow, this is an amazing thing that somebody put together.
So do you think this will replace, your wallet with cash? And do you see that happening, or is it more, as you said, to guard against inflation? And
yeah, that's a good question. So I'm worried about digital only payments that don't protect our privacy and that undermine, allow people to control government control over the population.
Yeah.
And that's why I think New Hampshire we need to get there early and make sure that we steer it in a privacy-friendly way.
That was the reason for the question, actually, because that's what I am concerned about.
Yeah.
If it's digital only, then who's, does somebody have a chance to control that whole thing?
Yeah, so in Bitcoin's designed to be resistant to a sovereign attack. It's designed to be resistant to an attack by multiple countries at the same time, like a coordinated attack. It's that decentralized and distributed around the world that if they try to take out some of the nodes, because it's all copies, that the rest of them can spring up. There's even satellites in space that are up there just to relay the blocks and the messages. So it's super resilient. Yeah, it's super resilient. And it's something called a permissionless network. It means no one can stop you from using Bitcoin. As long as you have access to a smartphone or a computer, you need access to the internet.
Right.
But like I said, you could talk to a satellite if you wanted to, right? So, I mean, there is an electronic device that is in the way, right? But to use the Bitcoin network, no one can stop you. It's open and permissionless is like two key phrases. So there's no gatekeepers in Bitcoin. As long as my phone can talk to the Bitcoin network, I can interact with it.
So how do you buy Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you can buy it person to person, or you can buy it through an exchange. Like there's lots of exchanges that are up now. I mean, I think if you went down to Murphy's Tap Room, there's an ATM there. You can buy Bitcoin right on the entrance.
Oh.
At least it used to be there. I think it's still there.
Yeah.
There's lots of those ATMs are popping up around the state. If you go to like a gas station or a mini mart, there are exchanges online. Like TD Ameritrade.
Ameritrade.
Right. Like or Charles Schwab.
Yep.
That style of a exchange where it's stocks and bonds, or stocks at least. There's exchanges just for crypto that are very similar.
There are.
Yeah. And Fidelity, if you have a trading account, Fidelity has a product it's called an ETF. So they buy Bitcoin and they hold it for you, and then you buy shares of their Bitcoin supply.
Got it.
And it's tied to the price of Bitcoin. So like if Bitcoin goes up in value, you benefit.
So do you trade it like you do stock?
You could, yeah. There are platforms that let you do that, like Robinhood.
Yeah, I have that. That's who I have an account with.
Yeah, Robinhood has a lot of crypto.
Yeah, because I've seen more and more. In fact, every week every Monday you get something from Robinhood to tell you where they're at, what they're doing, kind of thing.
I think PayPal even, but there's different levels to it. So Bitcoin is like a bearer instrument. It's something that you can control and no one else can take it from you.
Okay.
But if you give it to a third party, like an exchange, and they hold it for you, then there's a little bit of risk that they could.
But you can do it directly without an exchange? Without
to
going
buy
through?
it?
Yeah.
I mean, you need someone that's, so if you have U.S. dollars or
Right.
they call it fiat in the crypto space, right?
Right.
You need somebody that's willing to give you dollars for that, or
Oh, the other way around.
receive your dollars for the,
For the
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
And it could be in person. It could be on exchange, like on the internet. It could be at a kiosk at the mall, right? There's lots of places now.
Yeah, because people are being paid in Bitcoin now.
Yeah, people are being paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah, which
And you could also mine it. Mining it's not, it used to be a lot easier. I don't know how, if you want to get into like the technical aspects, I can try to keep it simple, but mining is also.
yeah. Let's talk
way.
about mining.
All right. See if I can keep it simple. So mining. So we were talking about the decentralized nodes.
Yep.
And this bucket of new transactions that aren't on the blockchain yet.
Yep.
A block. Let me see if I can start this way. Let's say you robbed a bank and they found your fingerprint, and they can match up that, oh, that's JP's fingerprint. That's evidence. That's proof that you were there, right? Or
Right.
Potentially that you robbed the bank. Just say.
Right.
The fingerprint idea, right? It represents your whole body.
Okay.
In cryptography, there's something called a hash function, and let's say you have a digital picture or a Word document, ones and zeros,
Okay.
a finite bucket of ones and zeros, and you put that into the hash function, what comes out is a fingerprint, a digital fingerprint.
Okay.
If you change 1, 0, or 1 in that original data and you run that hash again,
Changes the fingerprint.
completely different fingerprint.
Got it.
So it's proof that if you have the fingerprint and you can hash the data and you come up with that same fingerprint, then you know that data wasn't changed. It's exactly what it was when that fingerprint was created.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So what a blockchain is a bucket of ones and zeros hashed to the fingerprint. That fingerprint goes into the next block with the transaction data, the ones and zeros from that. And that's how the blocks are strung together. So if you change any 1 or 0 anywhere in that the previous blocks, then it invalidates the whole entire, like you know that it was tampered with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So,
So that's-
yeah,
that's-
it's hard. It's hard to do that, I would think, right?
It's very hard to do that. Now, the way that Bitcoin works is, and think of like a slot machine. So you've been to the slots, right? You pull the lever, and let's say you want to get all cherries.
Right.
And there's 3 slots. So 3 slots of cherries. There's a certain probability that you'll get all cherries, right?
Right.
If you keep pulling the slot. Now, if you add 4, 5, 20, 100 slots, the probability of all cherries goes way down.
Right.
So just keep that analogy in mind. The hash function, the blocks of transactions, when you hash it, it comes up with this digital fingerprint. The fingerprint is ones and zeros.
Okay.
So just think of random ones and zeros. Now, there's something called the difficulty adjustment in Bitcoin. So there's a requirement that the first few digits have to be all zeros, just like all cherries. And the number of required zeros changes. It changes the probability. And so what the nodes are doing is, at least on the Bitcoin blockchain, they're taking the hash from the previous block, they're taking the new transaction data, and they're adding another number. It's called a nonce. It's like just a random number. And they keep hashing it until they get a fingerprint that has zeros, a certain number of zeros. And that difficulty adjustment changes every, I want to say 20 days, something like that. And so the more computers trying to do the same thing, they make it harder. The protocol makes it harder to find that next block, so that on average, every 10 minutes, it's a probability problem. Every 10 minutes, a new block is found.
Oh, wow.
When a node finds that magic number and gets all those cherries, it tells the network, here's the transactions I put into that block, here's the magic number. And it's the kind of problem where it's really difficult to find the solution, but once you find the solution, it's easy to verify. So all the other nodes verify, like, yes, that's the correct answer. They add it to their copy of the blockchain, and then they move on to the next block. It's just every 10 minutes, it's like a train on a track, you know?
Wow.
So so when a node finds a new block, there's something called the block reward.
Okay.
And so this is how new Bitcoin come into existence. So like the gold miner finds a vein of gold and they dig it up and they refine it.
Yeah.
These Bitcoin miners are trying to find that magic number, the solution to the problem, and when they do that, they're rewarded with new Bitcoin. And so all around the world, all these computers, somewhere there's a random computer that's getting that reward. Okay? You following me?
I am, yeah. No.
Almost done. So that reward gets cut in half every 4 years. So it used to be 50 new Bitcoins every 10 minutes, every new block. 4 years went by, then it went to 25. 4 years went by, and then it went to 12 and a half, and then 6 and a quarter, and now we're at 3 and an eighth. And so what that does is it creates a maximal level of scarcity for all the new Bitcoins that could ever come into existence. And that's how you get the maximum scarcity of 21 million. It'll be the year 2140 that the last Bitcoin will be mined because of that halving of the block reward. See what I mean?
Yeah, so that sort of protects you then, or at least it gives you an idea of what the Bitcoin is worth along the way.
Yeah, the inflation,
right?
The inflation rate.
So yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking. It's like if it's so, the inflation rate doesn't hurt that.
No, it doesn't.
It's not like inflation with dollars.
Right, because we don't know what that'll be. I think the Fed chairman was speaking this morning or today on, are they going to raise rates or aren't they going to raise rates?
Right.
Like that affects the money supply.
Right.
And we don't know what that is.
So we're limited to money supply as you go.
Yeah, we're limiting every 4 years.
Right.
And so if you think of it, if you graph it out, it creates I'll do it for the camera, it's an asymptotic curve. So it goes 50, 25, 12 and a half, 6 and a quarter, 3 and an eighth. And it's going to keep having every 4 years. And when you project it out at the year 2140, no new Bitcoins that'll be the end of it. And then the question is what happens next. So
Yeah, that was the next question. What happens next? We don't know.
No, we do.
Oh, we do know.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're called transaction fees.
Okay.
So the miners, I mentioned the mempool, and they're putting all these transactions in a bucket. You can attach, if I send to you, I can attach a little extra tip to the miners on that transaction. And what the miners are doing, they're trying to maximize their profit because they get that tip too.
Okay.
They get the mining reward and the tips. So they're grabbing out of that bucket the highest tips
that they can
get, so they can get maximum. And so once the mining reward goes to zero, those tips will still be the fees, the transaction fees, will still incentivize the blockchain.
So if you wanted to get some Bitcoin right now, when you went to, you could do it on your own, you said, right?
You need to know somebody that has it, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's one way to do it. How most people do it is they download an app like Coinbase or Kraken or Robinhood.
Robinhood, yeah.
And you have to go through a verification process, and you have to connect it to your credit card or your bank account.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a couple steps. Or like River.com or Swan Bitcoin, or there's a whole bunch of companies that do it. Yeah.
So let's talk about how that's going to affect the state then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Like, what's the advantage to doing that for the state of New Hampshire?
Well, I mentioned the inflation issue.
Right.
So what I explained the Bitcoin blockchain.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem.
No, I'm good.
You have another one?
Yeah.
So that's sort of like the foundational basics, and you can build whole industries and new types of companies on top of the blockchain, and that's a whole other conversation. Mm-hmm. Once you have this, like in software they call it a primitive. It's like a small unit that you can use to build bigger things. So once you grasp how the blockchain is like a primitive unit for building other things on top of it, like the next Meta or Google or Facebook might be a blockchain-based company.
Okay.
Because you can use blockchain to do lots of other things, not just keep track of who owes what currency. That's sort of just the foundational layer. So in the way I see it, we're at a period in time where it's like early internet. You remember when the internet was just getting started?
Yep.
And nobody knew how to make money on it. It was just for like pet pictures or,
right.
You know what I mean? And people kind of thought it was a joke, and now it's everywhere and everything.
Yeah.
Right? The same thing, the blockchain invention is on par with the internet invention. you sort of have to be steeped in it to see the not too distant future.
Yeah.
But we want our state to be ahead of the curve, not lagging behind when it comes to blockchain, especially, right?
Yeah.
So blockchain is the technology that underpins Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's just the first example of it. But that same blockchain technology can be used for lots of other things, and it's basically how humans can agree on a version of the truth. That we can agree, and we can agree on our history. You know, once you put something on the blockchain, you can't change it. It's immutable. It's permanent forever. And that's something we haven't had in the digital space yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like Wikipedia can be changed every day.
Yeah, great example. Great example.
Yeah,
Yep.
where that can't. I really wish that Josh was here because he's an IT guy.
Yeah, he's probably all
he's
this
a
stuff.
computer guy. He would, I know he's not watching because he's probably having an adult beverage right now, or getting on his plane.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. So thank goodness we can replay this for him, and he'll probably have a bunch of questions. We'll probably have to have a follow-up meeting.
Yeah,
with
sure,
you.
sure.
But how did you get this through? I mean, what committee did this come out of?
It came out of Commerce and Ways and Means in the House.
Ways and Means.
So two committees in the House.
And are you on any of those?
I'm on Commerce, yeah.
You're on Commerce.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're looking at Commerce and.
So Commerce is it became the crypto, domain or expert committee on this topic.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of years on Commerce talking about this stuff and having experts come in and just sort of getting our heads around it. So, back in the day it wasn't like that. Everybody was trying to figure it out, right? It was, but now people see it.
So cryptocurrency, is that the same thing?
Yeah,
is there a little
kind of
difference?
is. Yeah. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency.
Right. So what other means are there to?
Yeah, this is such a huge topic. I'm trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, so
not because just for our time reasons, right?
Yeah.
So remember the series of nodes I was talking about? The reason why people use their computers and their energy a computer takes energy to compute.
Sure.
And these nodes are operated by people that don't know each other. They don't even. They might not even like each other, right? But they're all running the same protocol. The reason that they do it is because of the incentive of the new Bitcoins or the transaction fees.
Right.
It incentivizes their behavior, right? And it just so happens Bitcoin can be a medium of exchange, right? We can trade it between each other. But so you have to keep that in mind. It's incentivizing the maintenance of the network by random people around the world that don't even know each other, right?
Yeah.
So Bitcoin's just one. Then you have Ethereum is another one.
Okay.
And Ethereum works kind of a very different way.
Okay.
And I don't know if we have time to get into it, but it's different but similar.
We've got another 15 minutes or so,
All right.
20 minutes. So go ahead.
Ethereum has its own token that incentivizes the network. So every blockchain pretty much has a native token that incentivizes
the
people doing it, right?
Yep.
But Ethereum has something additional called a smart contract.
Okay.
Which is a snippet of code that you can put on the blockchain. And it has like an email address similar. It has an address. And if you send a little bit of that token to that address, it triggers this smart contract, and it can do lots of things. And one of the things it can do is issue a brand new token.
Oh wow!
And so the native token and the brand new token are both considered cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
But one lives on top of the other. One, like the base layer is incentivized by. It's called Ether in Ethereum. But you could create a smart contract to create a new kind of token, call it whatever you want. It could be JP token.
Right.
And that's living on top of the Ethereum blockchain and wouldn't exist if Ethereum went away. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, it would disappear.
Yeah, I mean, not that Ethereum's going to go away, but so with that smart contract idea, you can do lots of things with it. We haven't even figured out all the things that you can do with it. Because it's like a world computer. It's like a computer that lives on the internet. It's multiple copies of it, but it's kind of like one big thing.
So this can't be controlled because there's so many people on it, or
there's so many different actors. Yeah, and they're because of the internet, they can still talk to each other. They're located in different areas of the world, but they're all communicating through the internet, right?
So how big is it here in the States versus like Europe, let's say, like England, and or maybe it should be someplace that's a high tech place, maybe India or.
There's a place in Switzerland. I think it's called Zog. It's like the crypto capital of Europe.
Okay.
It's like in the Alps in Switzerland.
Wow.
Yeah. So just like capital goes to where it's welcome. Have you ever heard that term?
Yep.
So like innovators in technology go where they're welcome, right?
Yep.
And the last administration, the Biden administration, was very anti-crypto. They were
Right.
They saw it as a competitor to the dollar, which it's really not.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to crush it. The government wasn't issuing the rule book. They like if you were an innovator in the space, you could innovate, but not knowing the rules, and then the SEC or some other agency could say, "Hey, you broke the rules, but we're not going to tell you what the rules
are." Right.
Hire a bunch of lawyers, and they put them out.
Man.
That happened to a startup here in Manchester. It was called Library. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, this is a few years ago. Library. It's LBRY. It was. They used blockchain technology to create a competitor to YouTube, but it was a decentralized platform. So if you uploaded a video, it was living in this virtual space. Not like a YouTube has lots of server farms, right?
Right.
Central server farms. But using blockchain and some other technologies, the video would live everywhere on the internet. So it's uncensorable, YouTube. And the SEC came after them because they had their own incentivizing token, their own base layer token. And they said they were issuing a security, and they shut the company down. And it was headquartered just a couple blocks from here.
Really?
So it could have been the next YouTube, except for the SEC was picking off these companies. So now that the Trump administration has come in, he's completely embraced crypto.
Yep. And he has Elon Musk.
And he has Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's got to help.
It's a whole. So you ask, where in the world is this happening?
Yeah.
Under the Biden administration, all these companies were fleeing the country because they were afraid to get fined or go to jail. And they were going to like Malta and the Bahamas and but now that Trump is in office and he's in, like the SEC chair is now pro crypto.
Yep.
The Treasury chair is pro crypto.
Yep.
Like his whole administration is super pro crypto. So now these innovators are coming back, and they're looking for a state to call home. I
was going to ask you that. Is where are they going to go?
So. So I think we want them to
come here.
I mean, it's the future of a lot of industries, right? So
yeah.
So that's how I look at it. Like we can.
That would be awesome. I mean,
it would be awesome.
You took the first step, and everybody else is trying to catch up. I would think at this point.
Yeah, there's some other states that, like Wyoming, is probably a little ahead of us.
Are they?
And Texas has a big legislature that.
Yes.
They're having a little trouble getting some stuff through, but we're in the running for like top 5 in the country. So.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so they might actually move here.
Yeah,
maybe.
So we talked about those exchanges. I don't want to plug anybody because I'm not.
No, but
yeah. So there's Coinbase and there's Kraken. You probably heard of Coinbase. Yeah.
Yes.
There's another one called Crypto.com.
Okay.
And so it's a big exchange. You can download it on your phone.
Yep.
They looked at all the states and they said that New Hampshire is a good spot for them to locate. So they opened an office in Portsmouth. They filed a trust company with the state. And they're parking a lot of capital here, and they're and a lot of that has to do with our trust laws, but also that we've been putting this, common sense blockchain policy into place over the years.
So how does that help the individual resident in the state of New Hampshire?
Yeah, so when you have industry here, has to hire people. They have to build a building potentially, or they have to open an office. They have to, how does Wall Street being in New York City help New York City residents, right? Like it's part of the ecosystem of the economy.
So do you think this is, we always talk about how do we keep young people here? How do, rather than losing them? It would seem to me that there's a group of young people who are probably already doing this stuff.
That's a great point.
And hopefully, we have something to talk to them about.
Yeah, you just jogged my memory. Not this past weekend. I'm getting my weekends mixed up. I think 2 weekends ago. So Harvard has a blockchain club. It's the Harvard Blockchain Club. And they put on an event. They had 40 schools there represented. And all young people, all students that are interested in stuff. and they had a competition. They had something called a hackathon. But the hackathon, they had a hackathon about technology, like tell me your product idea, right, and pitch it to us. But they also had a hackathon about state policy. And their hackathon, so these students got one piece of paper with instructions on it. And the instructions were, there was like 3 choices, but it was all about how to improve blockchain policy in the state of New Hampshire.
Wow.
So Harvard University had a whole competition about our state because they know that we're forward thinking on this stuff. So all these kids from all over the country were sitting in rooms and and they wrote up policy papers. And then I got to be a judge. I was a judge in the competition.
Nice.
So I got to meet all these kids, and they're all super excited about New Hampshire. But a lot of them had the same idea that you just mentioned. We don't want young people fleeing. We want to have jobs and opportunities for young people that they're attracted to, that represent the future. And that was a lot of the points that they made about brain drain or reverse brain drain. So.
Yeah, I'm stunned because this is something I really didn't know anything about at all. But it makes the analogies made are common sense to me now, based on what you said.
Yeah, cool.
But there's so much. It seems like there's a lot more to be known about it.
Yeah,
but you got to take baby steps, I guess, first. And
I don't think anybody understands it's gotten to be such a huge ecosystem.
Yeah,
and it's all online, right? Like you're not going to see it walking down the street.
Right.
You got to kind of go on your computer and looking for it.
Yeah.
But there's so much innovation in the space. It's like.
So what's a single Bitcoin worth today? Can you
so
do
it
that way?
changes.
It changes pretty rapidly.
It changes rapidly. It's like 97,000, something like that.
For one Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. But there's an unlimited, there's no limit on how many dollars can be printed, right? So, but there is a hard limit on how many Bitcoin can be printed. So that's really that fixed supply is kind of, got to wrap your head around it.
Yeah. So, Mark Warden.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had a bunch of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So he's done very well for himself.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And can you kind of play it like the stock market?
You can if you want.
Yeah. And you can, get rid of it or trade it or whatever you do at any time.
I don't recommend that. I mean, there's something called dollar cost averaging.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's say you have, I don't know, an extra $20 a week or something, right? Coffee money.
Right.
There's apps like I think I mentioned River and Swan.
Yeah.
There's a couple. You hook it up to your bank account, and then once a week or however often you want, you can convert $20 into a little bit of Bitcoin, and just you can do that over time. Just wait 5 years, and that way you're not worrying about is the price up today or is it down today.
Right.
You're smoothing out that volatility.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like people are, I've talked to people who are really, kind of shaken up about the stock market going down and stuff. What do we do? You buy. That's what you do. I've talked to people I see that more. I think it's better for younger people. For people my age, we'll never see it come back to where you want it to be, but you still want to buy.
Yeah.
Because but Bitcoin doesn't show you that though. It doesn't because of the way it's set up. It doesn't show that way, right? I mean. Do you see a drop off in the cost of Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's so in its early stages, it's very volatile. It's still a volatile asset class, or any cryptocurrency.
Yep.
But Bitcoin now has like a $2 trillion market cap.
Okay.
And so I think what you're going to see, back when it had a $100,000 market cap,
right, one
little purchase could swing the price either way.
Yeah.
Right? As the total value expands, the volatility is going to go down.
Got it.
But the hard cap on the number is always there. It's not possible to change it without like taking over half the planet or something. It's like it'd be a big deal to try to change it. So.
Well, that's encouraging though. Really, that's kind of some support of it. So I'm glad you've talked about it not. It's not something that we have to worry about. It's not going to. We're still going to have dollars. We're still going to have that exchange.
Yeah,
it's never going to. Hopefully, never going to go away. I worry a little bit. I mean, I've read enough about what happens when governments take over banks and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of frightening because they can follow everything now. They were taxing your money if you had a $600 came in from somewhere, they would look at it and want to tax you on it. I mean, that was something they talked about. They're not doing that, but it doesn't seem like you'd have to worry with Bitcoin at all. And
there's no central authority to take over. It's all like.
I've got to read the bill that you.
Yeah, the bill's pretty simple. It just says the treasurer has a list of assets that were approved, and we just added precious metals and basically digital assets that had a very high market cap. That's what we added.
Oh, okay.
And it's just an option.
You just give them a choice then.
Yeah, we expanded their tools in their toolbox, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it plays out. And
so what's next?
Yeah, well, I got a couple other bills that are related to this. I mean, we didn't really touch on. There's something called a stable coin.
Okay.
So.
That's a whole other show, I think.
It could be.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, the good thing is like if we had you back in June sometime, then some of this would at least
have gone through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or failed.
Yeah. No, it's not going to fail.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So a stable coin, real quickly, is you take a U.S. dollar and you put it in the bank, and then you create a token that represents that dollar. And then there's a little algorithm that makes sure that when the token is on the market, it's always pegged to the dollar. So one stable token equals $1 all the time, and it's backed by $1.
Yeah. So okay.
So there's thoughts that the stable token can increase the reach of the U.S. dollar into every corner of the planet, where all you need is a smartphone and an internet connection.
Wow.
And now you can trade dollars. And then if your government hyperinflates the money, you can convert it all to U.S. dollars, and you have it in your.
That's pretty.
So that's a short version. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah. So when they say it's going to take over or replace the dollar, they don't understand all the dynamics of it. So it's actually going to increase the reach of the dollar, and at the same time, it puts some constraints on how many dollars the government can produce.
Okay.
So it puts some kind of like a quality check or a governor onto the U.S. has to always be aware that Bitcoin's there to, replace the dollar if they ever got out of control with. So it's sort of like Big Brother over their shoulder saying, "Don't print too many dollars because
right.
Everyone's going to come to Bitcoin," right? So
yeah.
So that's
pretty wild.
Yeah, it's really wild.
So I'm impressed that you did it so quickly. So obviously
Awesome.
There's a number of people at the State House who understand this from.
Yeah.
You had the key players, Osborne certainly. I'm sure that Jason knows enough about it to help out, and the governor was willing to sign this when she saw the possibilities of what that could bring us, right?
Yeah, and so this is like breaking news. I can do it on your show, right? Breaking news.
Oh yeah, alert! we have like 8 minutes, so breaking news. Let us know. We got time.
So it just so happens in about 2.5 weeks in Las Vegas, there's the biggest Bitcoin conference on the planet ever. It's called Bitcoin 2025. It's huge.
It's not like Comic-Con, right? You don't have to show up. You don't have to wear special things. Yeah, you can wear the shirt that Elon Musk works.
Yeah, it's probably business casual.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. There's a lot of high rollers there.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so like Eric and Don Jr. are going to be there, Trump's, and lots of politicians. Ted Cruz will probably be there. Senator Lummis out of Wyoming. There's a whole bunch of politicians that
are you going?
Stuff. I'm thinking about going, but I just got word an hour ago that because Kelly Ayotte signed the first ever bill, that they want her to come to this conference and speak to this giant conference. So we're trying to make that happen. If you have an inside track on Kelly, I think she should go. It'd be great for her.
I do, actually. Yeah, Kelly and I go way back.
Oh,
and,
good.
She's been very supportive of what I've done for veterans and stuff like that. So
awesome.
She's a good friend, and I was really happy to see her get elected. And I think she's, not going to agree with everything she does, but I think overall her heart's in the right place for the state.
Yep.
And I think that's awesome. That'd be great.
Would that be cool?
Yeah, it'd be very cool. Did they invite her? Is that?
It's coming.
It's coming. So she doesn't even know that
I don't
yet.
think she knows it yet.
All right. Pay attention, Kelly. We have some news for you.
They want to make it very easy on her. They're not going to ask her hard technical questions.
Yeah.
They're just going to, it'll be a friendly interview because she's the first governor And
Wow.
history can only happen once, and it happened yesterday. So
that's awesome.
yeah, everybody's in Arizona in the space. They're mad at their governor. They didn't sign it fast enough. Is that funny?
That is funny. But I see that happening. I think it seems to me that we're doing things in the state now that are really important.
Yeah.
And we are the first in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And the fact that she's the first one to sign this, I think that's pretty cool. Actually,
it is super cool. And she tweeted out, "We're first in the nation to do this." So
that's awesome.
It kind of ties in.
Yeah, I'll let her know after the show.
Okay, so it's coming, and that it's I think it's a cool opportunity.
Yeah, especially if you say this is the largest one ever held.
It's the largest conference for Bitcoin in the world, and it's probably going to be huge because the last one was in Nashville, and now that Trump's in, and literally his entire cabinet is talking about this stuff.
Wow! And
so the whole space is exploding, and there's going to be a lot of politicians love to get in front of a parade, So there'll be a lot of politicians there. But yeah, I think Eric Trump and Donald Jr. Trump are going to be.
That'd be awesome.
They're going to be keynoting, and there's going to be it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
and the timing's perfect, right?
Yeah. You just signed it. Now this is going to happen, and that's pretty impressive.
Super fun.
Great job, man. That's really cool. I'm sure we confused a lot of people, but we'll have you back, including myself. But no, I have a better understanding now of that. I'm not as cautious as I was before. I mean, I think I can get through it now.
There's a whole bunch of other stuff.
I'll check some of the things online now to see how they operate. I know Robinhood does that. They send, and I have kind of been putting it aside because I really didn't take the time to learn about it.
Right.
And they're pushing a lot of the same kinds of things to do.
There's a lot of just like the internet can be used for things that help humanity, but also it's a double-edged sword. Every technology is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And if you dig far enough down into the blockchain space, there are some scams. You got to watch out, right?
Yeah, of course.
There are people trying to make money off of other people nefariously.
Yes.
So, just be cautious, do your research, do your homework. But I'm confident Bitcoin's the first one, and the ecosystem around it is top notch. So
that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to check to see next week. Well, you probably know both of these guys. So next week when Josh will be back, I will have on Representatives Greg Hill and Len Turcotte.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be an interesting conversation, too.
Awesome.
So do you want to let them know how to reach you or anything, or you can just face the camera?
Yeah.
Because
sorry, I haven't looked at the camera very much.
You don't need to.
You can find me on the state website, so gc.nh.gov. You can Keith Ammon, A-M-M-O-N. And I'm also on Twitter, R-E-P Keith Ammon, A-M-M-O-N. Rep Keith Ammon on Twitter. That's probably the best place to find me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
And we'll see you next week.
Great.